Attention sports teams. Let us introduce you to the best fan engagement tool in the game, .vote. By getting a .vote web address for your team, you can allow fans to engage and interact with big-time decisions. In a single click, not only can fans make their opinions heard, but sports teams get a better understanding of their fans' interests. Keep your fans engaged. Simply visit GoDaddy.com today, type in the desired name of your web address, and let the voting begin.
If you thought Arch Manning's debut was a disaster, what'd you think about Bill Belichick's on Monday night? We dive into two of the most interesting stories of the weekend in college football and why not all debuts are the same. It's right now on Gordon Damer on Sports. Hey, welcome in, off and running on this episode of Gordon Damer on Sports. Thank you for hitting play. Plenty to get into in this episode number 37. Before we get into any of it, please, I always say it, hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you are using to listen or watch the show. I truly do appreciate it. All right, I wanted to get into a couple of college football stories this weekend because we got the NFL coming up on Thursday, but two stories immediately jumped out to me. One, you had the debut of Arch Manning at Texas this weekend, and then the other on Monday night, you had Bill Belichick's debut at North Carolina. Both did not go very well. But let's go with age before beauty here because they have a rule in local news. If it bleeds, it leads, right? And holy moly, that North Carolina performance was so bad. I was glad that they kept showing Bill Belichick on the sidelines because I just wanted to make sure that he was still there, that he didn't bail with the girlfriend for the night because it was so bad. Everybody else who could leave did leave. All right, so let's start. Let's set the stage here first off. We have the Monday night game for North Carolina and TCU. TCU is a slight favorite, I think 3.5. And I have to be honest with you, going in, I didn't really know what to expect. I don't think anyone really knew what to expect. And I'm not even talking about winning the game or losing the game. I'm just talking about Bill Belichick on a college sideline. And to me, this has always felt like a bad backup plan. Like he wants to coach again, but no NFL team was going to give him a chance. And this has always felt not just a backup plan, not just a fallback, but more of a break glass option. And it always feels like one he made on a whim, that if any other opportunity comes along, he'll bail on this as quickly as possible. So I guess I was a little bit more negative going in, but holy moly, I did not even expect that. That was not just a beatdown. That was a total embarrassment. And you have this scene, this pumped up scene. I mean, Chapel Hill could not have been more pumped, right? You get all the big names out. Michael Jordan's there, Lawrence Taylor, Julius Peppers. Everybody's lining the side. Aaron Boone's there. Because, look, North Carolina didn't just hire a new coach. They hired a legend. They hired a guy, 6 Super Bowl rings, and the buildup was obviously unreal. Now, it was probably overhyped, but you could not get away from it. It was the one big game on Monday night. And this was supposed to be a moment for North Carolina that they announced to the world, hey, what happened before is different. We've got Bill Belichick now, and you're going to have to respect us. Now, what version of Bill Belichick? That is a major question. Did the Tar Heels get the guy who is the ruthless football genius, who is hungry for payback after basically being disrespected by the Patriots and run out of the NFL? Or is this just a guy who's cruising by on reputation, and a reputation that is fading by the day? So look, the game starts, an opening drive. Carolina plays the part, right? Marches right down the field, smooth, confident, couple of play calls look really good. Quarterback looks composed, stadium's rocking, and I could not get over the amount of positivity flowing on Twitter. The whole Bill Belichick has still got it vibes. I'm thinking to myself, it's one drive. Can we slow down? And we should have slowed down because after that, everything fell apart. That one opening drive was the highlight because after that, the Tar Heels may as well have just packed up and gone home. The offense, after that point, was non-existent. The defense was just as bad. Missed tackles. Forget about it. It was ugly. By the midway through the second quarter, you could feel, even on TV, watching the life drain out of the building. You imagine being one of those big donors or alumni. You made the trip to see Bill Belichick's big debut, and you saw all those people headed for the exits. And by the third quarter, the place was a ghost town. You could have fired cannonballs into the upper deck and not injured a soul. So this was not just a loss. This was an absolute beatdown. And here's the thing. I don't think anybody was predicting doom and gloom going in. I thought that this was, it's going to be interesting, right? Nobody's expecting it to hit the ground running and blow people out right away. But I think people expected something competitive, right? Some energy, an identity, an established way. All right, Carolina's going to look the part, even if they lose by a late field goal. Instead, they suffered the most embarrassing loss in 2 decades in Bill Belichick's debut. According to the AP, North Carolina had not lost by 34-plus points since 2018. Since they've only done it twice in the last 19 years. This is the most lopsided loss since under Mac Brown was, I think, 29 points in the ACC title game against Clemson. That's different. This was a humiliation. The Tar Heels had not lost by 30 or more to an unranked opponent since 2008. Back then, Belichick's girlfriend was only like 7 years old. And Belichick's supposed to be the savior, right? The football genius. And I don't think anybody's expecting everything to be perfect in game one, but you'd like to think you aren't going to get run off the field in historic fashion. I mean, the offense, it took them more than 2 hours to complete a pass after the opening drive. 2 hours. That's not just bad. That is Keystone Cops level ineptitude. And it wasn't like the other aspects of the team were any better. The defense gave up 48 points, or I guess it was only 41 because they had the interception for a touchdown. I mean, that's the most ever given up by a Belichick coach team. And that includes the Patriots' worst times, the Browns' years. Nothing else compares. So, I mean, they just got handed the most points he's ever allowed in his career in his debut in college. So anyone who thinks, after that first drive, well, he still got it. Yeah, reality kind of slapped them in the face. And I think that's kind of where we're at. The debut of Belichick in college football, it wasn't just a flop. It was a historic disaster. And why it's not just that one game either. Because the reason I think that this loss hits different was because, on paper, you can try and brush it off. First game, brand new roster. I think they have 70 new players. All the key positions have turned over. Growing pains happen. What are you going to do? But it's the circumstances, right? This was not. This was a hyped up game. This was not a sleepy noon game against an unknown opponent. This wasn't a road trip in November. This was supposed to be the grand unveiling. National TV audience, donors and dignitaries in the luxury boxes. This was a chance for Belichick and UNC to silence all the doubters and say, look, you might have questions, but this was obviously the right move. The only statement here was, not only have the Tar Heels been bad, they just might have made it worse somehow. And trust me, like donors, think about if you were a donor after watching that. Because college football, yes, it's about wins and losses, but it's also about momentum. It's about perception, energy around the program. And all the energy in the offseason was negative. The one thing that you can do to improve that is go and win games. Could you imagine being a donor, watching that for 3 hours, and then breaking out the checkbook? So, look, one game doesn't undo the investment that North Carolina has made. Bill Belichick's not going to get fired after one game, no matter how bad it was. But instead of the conversation being about looking forward, it's going to be the same questions, but only louder. Was this a mistake? Has North Carolina done the wrong thing here? And are they going to have a very expensive problem on their hand? Because North Carolina, I'm not the biggest college football fan, but I know they've had their share of disappointments, and this was supposed to be the start of something different. This is exactly the reason why they brought Belichick in, to avoid nights like this, to establish some professionalism. And instead, they get the kind of humiliation that they thought was a thing of the past. So I think that that's why this loss was not just a bad game. This was every question, every negative question surrounding this hire just got amplified. There's no other way to look at this. And I have to wonder, is Bill Belichick cut out for this? Because look, he's got, we all know his resume. He's got the Super Bowl rings. He's a Hall of Fame NFL coach. But, college is a different thing. He's not done it before. And I think that this game was a bit of a reminder of just what he has stepped into here. With the NFL, you are dealing with professionals to a degree. You have control there. He ruled the roost in New England and had the power of number 12 to back him up in Tom Brady. Now, NIL stuff, kids transferring in and out. I think that this could get ugly very quickly. And it already got ugly, right? But because Belichick, he has a level of control. He's been handed that, but he doesn't have total control. He doesn't seem like he has control of where the direction of the program is actually headed here. So he has definitely got his hands full. And look, nobody was expecting it to be built overnight, but you would have liked to have come in and seen what was built and think, okay, I can see the vision. So I think the danger in assuming Belichick was just going to roll in and flip the switch and things were going to all go swimmingly, we have now gotten confirmation that is not going to be the case. This game was a brutal reminder of that. So all those questions, they're just going to get louder now. So I guess the big question is, where do they go from here? Because obviously this is just one game. The season's not over. As I said, Belichick, as bad as that game was, is not going to be fired. But I think that the honeymoon period, if there ever was a honeymoon period, is going to be over. They need to be, I think donors will need to be convinced that this is not some vanity project that we just brought in a big name who is kind of past his prime. Because the challenge now is to show, I think, for how quickly can you get this looking somewhat more professional, because this is about as bad a disaster as you could have first game out of the gate. And if he can't adapt to what the college game is, if this becomes a trend, UNC is going to be asking themselves a very uncomfortable question. Did we make a mistake by hiring this guy? And there has to be people within that program who have to be questioning that a little bit at this point. And how committed is he to this place? His entire decision process has to come into question with the whole girlfriend situation, the reality show thing. When he first got hired, there was all this drama around the off-the-field stuff. And I said at the time, he needed to survive the bad PR until the games start. And the games were a ways off. The games were way worse. Short of the girlfriend going on a crime spree, the game was the low point. Forget about the awkward interviews or the awkward questions about dating a 24-year-old. And I will say this. This had better be rock bottom. It better be nowhere but up from here. Because if it's not going to be a question about how long Bill wants to do this. It's going to be how long North Carolina has before they're showing him the door. It was that bad. All right, so that's the first one about college football. The second one is Arch Manning's debut for Texas, which was also bad. There's no other way around it. This was supposed to be most hyped player's debut in, I guess, recent history, recent memory. The entire offseason was about him and Texas and all the, going to Ohio State and the Horseshoe and the Buckeyes. And it was kind of billed as this clash of the Titans, right? The golden boy of the Mannings against the defending national champion defense. You couldn't turn on a TV that had college football and not be hearing about this for a while. And this was supposed to be the moment. Number one, Texas and the quarterback and the Manning, and did not go according to plan. A 14-7 loss. And I think really the thing that stood out was that how bad Arch Manning looked. He looked completely overwhelmed. He looked out of rhythm from the jump. He was missing easy throws. He had the one interception that looked bad. The overall numbers didn't finish that bad. I think it was 17-30 for 170 yards, a touchdown, an interception. He had a couple of runs, I think, for 35 yards. So, look, it would not be disastrous if he was any other first-year starter, but for Arch Manning, the supposed Heisman frontrunner, the generational talent, it was more than just a letdown. It was a flop. Now, I want to go about a couple of storylines that have come up as a result of this performance, some of which have been hysterical. The first one I think we got to talk about is the one floating around about Arch Manning didn't ask for all this hype. He's not about all the other stuff. He's just, he wants to just play football. He didn't ask for this hype nonsense. We got to calm it down with all this hype. He didn't ask for the hype. He didn't ask for it. I've seen this all over college football Twitter. Come on, it's unfair. It's not right. This is his first chance. You got to give him time. He just wants to stop it. Just stop. It is one of the laziest defenses that I have heard in a long time. Because let's rewind here. Arch Manning was the most recruited quarterback, it feels like, in modern history of college football. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not the college football historian. But he was not some anonymous guy who just popped up out of nowhere. And he's not just some young kid. He's a Manning. He's got a whole team of people around him. So that name alone put a spotlight on him. But it's the entire team that is hyping him up and advising him and guiding him along the way. So that all comes with the attention. That comes with scrutiny. And he didn't run from that attention. He leaned into it. He did the whole recruiting circus. He filmed all the commercials that were running during the game. He has leaned into it. And he has people advising him every step of the way. So he didn't ask for it, but he didn't avoid it either. He leaned into it as much as he could. And look, in the day of NIL, people are throwing out money? Absolutely. The fact that they were throwing it out before the kid had ever played a meaningful game, maybe that's on them. I don't blame him for cashing the checks or doing the commercials or grabbing the spotlight as much as possible and doing all these pieces and having the spotlight on you. But then when you flop, don't have the people in the media, oh, well, he didn't ask for this attention. He embraced it. He didn't shut the door to the hype train. He jumped on and pushed passengers over the side to make sure he had a seat. So, look, there are other quarterbacks who had hype, but I think they tried to downplay it, right? I think Trevor Lawrence, who was deemed this generational prospect, which has not turned out to be the case in the NFL, but he kept it fairly low-key, and Arch Manning had everything that you could... he is a Manning. Peyton loves the spotlight. Eli clearly loves the spotlight off the field. And Arch has followed in their footsteps. So he wanted to be the guy who is known as carrying the Manning name forward. That's not a crime. I think that's kind of, you can look at it and say that he's embracing it as part of an ambition. But you have to also embrace the consequences. As I often say, you don't get to make a deal with the devil and then complain about the heat. You make the deal, you deal with the consequences. And, by the way, the Mannings know how the game is played. That family is as media savvy as anyone has ever been. Peyton basically invented the idea of maybe not invented, but he certainly perfected the quarterback as a pitchman. Eli Manning has made a career off the field. He made a ton of money on the field, but he has not turned down many commercials since. So if Arch said he wanted to duck the attention, they absolutely could have made it happen. Instead, as I said, they leaned into it because the Manning brand is a business and he is the next chapter in that business. So that's all well and good. But let's kill that narrative now that he didn't want the spotlight. He's playing for the number one team in the country. It's not like he's looking to go someplace that he can just play ball and doesn't have to worry about all the media and all that type of stuff. So that's point number one. Point number two, again, I'm not the biggest college football fan in the world, but what did people exactly expect from this game? It was 14-7, and he did not look comfortable. I will grant you that. He did not look like somebody who's going to be the first pick in the draft this year. But it was his first career road start, and just not any road start. He was playing at the Horseshoe, right? people foaming at the mouth. I mean, it was not like a nice little easy game to get things started. It was probably one of the most hostile environments that he will play in college football this year. And he was playing against, again, the defending national champs, a team. I know it's not all the same guys, but most of the defense, I think they returned at least half of the defense from last year. And they also brought in Matt Patricia as their new defensive coordinator. So, that's a guy who has a reputation as well. And he had months to prepare for this one first game. And he came up with a great scheme to keep Arch Manning guessing and disguise the coverages and sent pressure. And, the kid clearly looked uncomfortable, felt uncomfortable, and played uncomfortable. So, what was Manning's resume before this? He had like 2 starts. One was against Mississippi, Louisiana, Monroe, and another one was UTSA. I don't even know what that is. So those are basically scrimmages compared to what he was facing this weekend. So, of course, he looked overwhelmed. Any quarterback would. You would kind of have to expect this for a kid's first real taste of the spotlight. And look, there's nothing more overblown in sports than week 1 in the NFL. People lose their minds both positively and negatively on things that happen in week 1. So I guess that also translates into college football because it is a primarily once a week thing. But I think that a rookie, essentially, who has one bad start is not a bust all of a sudden. I've seen people, Arch Manning, he's going to be a fraud. I've seen somebody say he was a Nepo baby. I don't think that necessarily applies here, And go back and look. Joe Burrow's first year at LSU was not great. Peyton Manning threw a ton of interceptions as a freshman at Tennessee. Josh Allen certainly was not a superstar right out of the box. There were many questions about him even coming into the NFL, not alone his first college game. So, again, as someone who was not a massive college football fan, I love the kind of overreaction that NFL fans generally have, but college football Twitter, whoo boy, they are just as bad. They saw one rough debut against a really good defense and lost their mind. Now, maybe people just hate the Mannings or they're kind of over, the hype train has certainly been pumped up to the nth degree with Arch Manning, but, let's let it breathe a little bit. Right? He had some opportunities, did not deliver. I think he is going to get better over time. And you know what? Maybe he won't. Maybe he will be a flop. That is in the realm of possibilities. But if that is what is going to happen, you cannot judge that after one game. And that's one other thing about the judgment. I think the most ridiculous part of this entire thing, I saw articles, how does this affect his draft stock? I mean, people. I love the draft. When you're a fan of a bad team like I am with my loser Dolphins, there's nothing I like more than the NFL draft. I would say there's a pretty good chance that Arch Manning is not even going to, even if he had a great season this year, even if he was going to be the number 1 pick, he might not enter the draft. So this is probably more a 2027 question, but we're going to go on one game and we're now going to put this into the AI machine and see what information it kicks out. One game, if that is moving the needle that much, well, then maybe you need a better machine and not such a hyperactive needle. I would like to think that scouts, maybe not, I'd like to think that they know better than that they see certain things and they see negative traits, but they also see positive traits. And those things don't disappear because he had a bad first start. I mean, does nobody have any perspective on things anymore? Bill Belichick, one good drive, he's back. Josh Allen, people were calling him a bust. Even when he got to Buffalo, there was clips that went round about when he was drafted. Buffalo fans were despondent. Lamar Jackson, at this point, people are still saying he should be a wide receiver. Justin Herbert, he's too robotic. He can't play in the NFL. So, yes, one bad game does not define a quarterback's career, especially when it's not their first game. Oh, my Lord. It's ridiculous. So, and I'll give you another prediction where people are talking about the draft and all that type of stuff. The Mannings control the narrative. Never forget, Eli refused to play for the Chargers, forced his way to the Giants, and it was obviously, in hindsight, the absolute right decision. So Archie back then protected Eli. I'm sure the Mannings are going to protect Arch. So I don't think Arch is going to end up with some of one of these teams just because they have the number one pick. Like, if the Cleveland Browns have the number one pick this year, I don't think he's coming out anyway. Even if they have the number one pick next year, he's not going there. He's not going to Carolina. He's not going to end up in a dumpster fire of an organization. The Chargers, I think you can already cross off the list. The Dolphins, who will probably need a quarterback in 2 years, cross them off the list. They are going to find the right situation for him. They're going to have a hand in it every step of the way. I can guarantee you right now, Arch Manning is never going to wear a Browns jersey. They can lose every game from now until the draft that he is in. Could be 2028, and he is not going to the Cleveland Browns. That is not how this family has done business in the past, and I have to believe that they are not going to do that business in the future. So the draft stock of Arch Manning, who is going to play at least this year of college football, which just began, and almost certainly will play next year in college football, I don't think it's time necessarily to be analyzing the draft stock of Arch Manning because you sound ridiculous. It was a bad debut. It was an absolute flop. There's no way around it. But the idea that he didn't ask for the spotlight, that's stupid. But in the stupidity range, the only thing that tops that is evaluating what his draft stock is after one game. If you are that into the draft, and again, love the draft. Love the draft every single year. Trust me, in October, whenever the Dolphin season is over, if they even make it to October, who knows, maybe it's September this year, I will be Googling mock draft because it's the one time when you root for a bad organization that you can have some hope. That's the time. But I think that with Arch Manning, with a schedule like San Jose State and UTEP and Sam Houston before that, I think they play Florida in like a month. I think that he's going to be all right. This is the life that he signed up for. He knew the deal when he took the deal. And if you are evaluating Arch Manning's draft stock at this point, I think it's time, as the kids say, to go outside and touch some grass. That's what it's time to do. It's time to go outside, maybe hug a tree, and get a little perspective in life. There's no need. You are not running an actual NFL team. I can tell you right now, even NFL teams are not focusing so much on Arch Manning's college football first road start with Texas. And if that is what you are doing, I would give you my perspective as someone who loves the draft as much as possible. Go outside and touch some grass. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Gordon Damer on Sports. If you've not already, hit that subscribe button. Do it for me, do it for you, and we'll join you later this week with another episode of Gordon Damer on Sports.
Well, now, college is over, and here comes your student loan debt. Is your private student loan debt keeping you up at night? You really need to talk to YRefi. YRefi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch. They can save you thousands of dollars and get you a custom payment that you can afford. And they don't care what your credit score is. Don't let private student loan debt ruin your life. Call YRefi today.